If I told you that a group of older adults in Japan, people in their early 70s, managed to reverse their biological age by nearly 15 years in just 8 weeks, you'd probably think it was an exaggeration. But this isn't a miracle claim, and it's not science fiction. It's the kind of transformation researchers in Tokyo and Kyoto have been quietly documenting for years. In 2019, a landmark study from the University of California shocked the Western medical community. But for Japanese longevity researchers, it simply confirmed what they had been observing for decades. The human body, even after 60, still carries extraordinary regenerative capacity. It just needs the right kind of movement stimulus, something far more precise than standard exercises. Something closer to what Japanese physical medicine has been using for years. Because after 60, your muscles don't simply get weaker, they begin to vanish. Sarcopenia accelerates at nearly 8% per decade, and for many adults, that decline feels like fate. Slower walking, unstable balance, more difficulty climbing stairs, and an uncomfortable sense that the body no longer responds the way it used to. But here's where Western expectations collide with Japanese reality. Researchers at the Tokyo Metropolitan Institute of Gerontology discovered that muscle decline isn't just physical, it's neurological. The brain begins disconnecting from certain muscle fibers, especially fast-twitch fibers, the ones responsible for strength, speed, and catching yourself when you stumble. And here's the shocking part the pharmaceutical world avoids mentioning. 5 specific movements done slowly, precisely, and in the correct sequence can reactivate dormant stem cells inside your muscles. This awakening process boosts the production of growth factors that Japanese scientists once assumed were impossible to stimulate naturally in people over 60, but they were wrong. These movements do exactly that. The Western world spends billions on hormone injections, supplements, and anti-aging procedures. But in Japan, the strongest improvements in mobility over 60 come from sequences inspired by martial arts conditioning, fall prevention therapy, and isometric neuromuscular training. These movements are subtle, controlled, and deeply intentional. They don't rely on brute force, and they don't strain your joints. For many seniors in Okinawa, Kyoto, and Nagasaki, these movements are a daily ritual, and researchers believe they contribute to the extraordinarily low rates of age-related disability seen in these regions. Movement number 5, heel raises with eccentric focus, is one of the foundational Japanese techniques taught in geriatric rehabilitation clinics. It looks simple, but on a cellular level, it's one of the most powerful tools you have. After 60, the calves lose up to 40% of their explosive strength. But Japanese physiotherapists refer to the calves as the body's emergency brakes. When you trip, slip, or lose balance, your calves contract instantly to keep you upright. When they're weak, that system fails and falls become far more likely. The Japanese version of heel raises involves rising quickly but lowering slowly, taking a full 6 seconds to return to the floor. That slow descent creates eccentric tension, which stimulates stem cell activation and rebuilds tendon elasticity. Studies from Osaka University showed that this technique alone improved seniors' ability to catch themselves during a misstep by more than 40%. It also improves circulation, ankle stability, and reaction time, 3 qualities that decline rapidly after 60 but are tremendously important for safe, confident walking. Movement number 4, glute bridges with sustained holds, is another staple of Japanese longevity therapy. In Western exercise culture, glutes are often treated cosmetically. But in Japanese rehabilitation medicine, they are considered the center of life. Weak glutes don't just affect strength, they disrupt posture, walking speed, balance, and even breathing efficiency. After 60, most people develop something called gluteal amnesia, where the brain stops activating key muscles in the hips. Japanese therapists correct this using long holds at the top of a glute bridge tight, controlled, and steady. These holds build deep stabilizing strength that protects the lower back and knees and reteaches the nervous system how to use the glutes properly. Movement number 3, the modified bird dog, is deeply rooted in Japanese fall prevention protocols. It strengthens the multifidus muscles running along the spine, which stabilize every step you take. But more importantly, it rebuilds proprioception, the brain's ability to sense your body's position in space. After 60, that sense weakens dramatically. Bird dog drills, performed slowly with long pauses, reconnect the brain to the spine and limbs, which is why researchers at Kyoto University saw fall risk drop by nearly 70% in seniors who practiced bird dog movements consistently. Movement number 2, step-ups with knee drive, is where Japanese and Western mobility intersect. But the Japanese variation emphasizes deliberate knee lifting to reawaken the hip flexors, which weaken rapidly with age. Hip flexor decline is one of the biggest predictors of mobility loss after 60. Japanese therapists focus on controlled knee lifting because it restores the spring in your gait and brings back the fast twitch responsiveness that disappears over time. And finally, movement number 1, the farmer's walk with pauses. This is where Japanese neuromuscular medicine shines. Researchers at Kyoto University and Tohoku University observed something astonishing. When older adults walk while holding moderate weights and incorporating brief pauses, they activate neural pathways that simultaneously improve strength, balance, posture, and brain function. The pauses create a controlled instability that forces the nervous system to tighten its control over the body, and the result is measurable cognitive improvement. This is why Japanese researchers frequently call this movement walking medicine. All 5 of these movements aren't random. They form a complete sequence, activating different layers of your muscles and nervous system in a way that accelerates regeneration. They work because they combine tension, balance, neural activation, and slow eccentric loading, 4 components that Japanese longevity science considers essential after 60. What you're about to learn is how these movements work together, the exact Japanese techniques that make them so powerful, and how just 15 to 20 minutes, 3 times a week, can reignite strength you thought was gone forever. In the next part, we break down the first 2 movements in precise step-by-step detail and why your body responds so dramatically to them. The first Japanese-inspired movement we dive into is the eccentric heel raise, a technique so simple that most people underestimate its power until they feel the results. In Japan, this movement is often taught in fall prevention clinics for adults over 65, not because it strengthens just the calves, but because it restores a protective reflex that tends to fade with age. When you perform the movement quickly on the way up and slowly on the way down, the body responds in a way that no regular walking or gym exercise can replicate. The sudden lift to your toes activates the fast-twitch muscle fibers responsible for quick reactions, the kind you rely on when you slip on a wet tile or misjudge a step. The slow lowering phase, however, is where the real transformation happens. Japanese physiotherapists call this phase controlled descent because it trains your muscles to resist gravity with precision, increasing strength in the Achilles tendon, tightening the arches of your feet, and supporting ankle stability. Japanese clinics often guide older adults to picture a lantern being gently lowered from the ceiling, steady, controlled, resisting the urge to fall too quickly. This imagery helps them maintain the slow 6-second descent that creates microscopic muscle challenges. These tiny challenges signal dormant muscle stem cells to awaken and begin repairing the fibers, which is a major reason this movement dramatically improves mobility. Over several weeks, adults who practice eccentric heel raises find that their walking stride becomes longer, their balance becomes more confident, and their ability to catch themselves when they wobble improves noticeably. Many older Japanese adults will tell you they stopped shuffling and regained the feeling of springiness in their legs, as if their muscles were remembering a forgotten ability. When transitioning into the second movement, the glute bridge hold, Japanese rehabilitation specialists emphasize that this is not just an exercise for strength, it's a neurological reset. The hips are considered the body's central hinge, and Japanese doctors often view glute weakness not as a muscle issue, but as a breakdown of communication between the brain and lower body. After 60, especially in modern sitting-heavy lifestyles, the glutes enter a state they call hibernation mode, a quiet, inactive state that leads to instability in the spine, difficulty climbing stairs, and slower walking patterns. The Japanese method teaches the glute bridge with a slow lift, a firm hold, and a slow release. The hold is crucial. As you press your hips upward, squeezing the glutes gently but deliberately, you coordinate hundreds of tiny stabilizing muscles across your pelvis and lower back. Holding that position creates a steady flow of nerve signals from the brain to the hips, essentially retraining the nervous system. Use these muscles again. This is why Japanese patients often see rapid changes in posture and balance within a few weeks. With every second of the hold, the glute muscles relearn their role in stabilizing the spine, lifting the body and supporting every step you take. And because the hold forces your body to stabilize without movement, there is no pressure on the joints, making it a perfect low-impact strength builder for adults over 60. Japanese clinicians advise keeping the breath soft and low in the belly during this hold, allowing the diaphragm and pelvic floor to synchronize with the glutes. This creates a full-body stability pattern that Japanese therapists consider one of the keys to aging without chronic lower back pain. Now we move into the modified bird dog, the third movement in this regeneration sequence. Unlike typical balance exercises, which rely on standing or shifting weight from one leg to the other, the Japanese method slows everything down to a near-still pace. The goal is not to challenge your balance through instability, but to rebuild the communication system that controls your balance in the first place. By lifting one arm and the opposite leg slowly and deliberately, you are activating two critical systems simultaneously: the proprioceptive sensors in your joints and the stabilizing muscles deep along your spine. Japanese researchers discovered something fascinating about this movement. When older adults performed bird dog slowly, with long pauses, their proprioception improved much more dramatically compared to faster, more athletic variations. The long pauses, sometimes 3 to 5 seconds, force the brain to maintain awareness of limb position without visual cues. Over time, this improves reaction time during real-life movements, such as stepping off curbs, turning quickly, or adjusting the body during uneven terrain. For seniors in mountainous regions like Nagano, this type of neural training has been standard for decades because it prevents falls on sloping paths and narrow walkways. While practicing bird dog, the Japanese method focuses on calm breathing, gentle stability, and an awareness of the hips staying level. A slight sway or tilt is normal at first, but Japanese therapists encourage a quiet body approach, moving slowly enough that the core muscles must fire continuously to maintain balance. This inner quietness builds a very specific kind of strength impossible to get from machines or weights. It strengthens the connection between the brain and the spine, reduces lower back pain, and ensures every step you take is supported by deep stabilizing muscles instead of overworked large muscles. Stepping into the fourth movement, step-ups with knee drive, we see the Japanese influence even more clearly. This movement mirrors the stepping pattern seen in traditional Japanese martial arts warm-ups, where raising the knee with control is considered essential for balance, posture, and hip mobility. The Japanese version places heavy emphasis on the upward knee drive, not just the step-up itself. This knee raise awakens the hip flexors muscles that tend to weaken dramatically after 60 and contribute to tripping. short shuffling steps, and difficulty lifting the foot over small obstacles. In Japanese clinics, older adults perform the step-up slowly, focusing on placing the entire foot on the step, pressing firmly through the heel, and lifting the body with deliberate intention. The downward phase is equally controlled, mirroring the same eccentric philosophy applied in heel raises. When done correctly, step-ups build functional strength that translates directly to daily life, going upstairs, rising from chairs, getting out of cars, and walking outdoors. Many Japanese therapists consider this movement a practical test of real-world strength, not gym strength. Finally, we arrive at the farmer's walk with pauses, the most surprising yet powerful longevity movement of all. The Japanese physical therapy community often refers to this as weighted mindful walking. The pauses interrupt the normal walking pattern, forcing the body to stabilize under load. This activates the core, improves posture, and challenges the balance system in a safe, controlled way. Tokyo researchers observed that older adults who practiced weighted walking with pauses showed improvements not only in leg strength, but also in cognitive performance. The reason is simple. The brain must work harder to maintain posture during the pauses, stimulating neural pathways associated with coordination and memory. When holding weights and pausing, the Japanese method emphasizes upright posture, shoulders back, chest relaxed, hips aligned. These pauses create a wave of tension that travels through the body, strengthening bones through increased mechanical load and helping the nervous system stay sharp. Many older Japanese adults incorporate this movement into their daily walks, especially in community parks where smooth paths allow them to focus on posture and pacing. Together, these movements represent a holistic Japanese approach to strength and anti-aging. Slow, intentional, grounded, and neurologically rich. Each one activates different systems: muscular, neural, proprioceptive, and skeletal, and when practiced consistently, they form a powerful defense against age-related decline. In the final part, we'll bring all 5 movements together, explain the weekly structure, and show exactly how these Japanese-inspired methods reverse biological aging so dramatically. When you combine these 5 Japanese-inspired movements into a single weekly routine, something remarkable begins to happen inside your body, something far deeper than simply getting stronger or improving balance. Japanese longevity researchers describe it as reactivating the blueprint, the natural patterns of movement, posture, and neural communication that kept your muscles youthful in your 30s and 40s. With age, these patterns don't disappear. They simply get buried under decades of disuse, stress, and inactivity. What these movements do, especially when performed in the correct order, is uncover those patterns and teach your body to function with clarity again. The reason this sequence works so powerfully is because each movement prepares the body for the next one. The eccentric heel raises ignite the fast-reacting muscles in your lower legs and wake up your balance reflexes. This prepares the ankles and calves to support the movements that follow. The glute bridge hold then restores the connection between your hips and spine, the foundation of every step you take. When your glutes activate properly, your body instantly becomes more stable, your posture improves, and your lower back is relieved of unnecessary tension it has carried for years. The modified bird dog then builds on this newfound stability by enhancing the communication between your brain and core. In Japanese rehabilitation, this is considered a crucial transitional step because if the brain cannot clearly sense your body as position, no amount of muscle strength can prevent falls or restore youthful movement. Bird dog movements refine your proprioceptive system, strengthening the tiny muscles along your spine and sharpening your body's awareness. This is why so many older adults report feeling lighter and more coordinated just a few weeks after practicing it. Once the core communication pathways are active, the step up with knee drive brings the entire lower body into synchronized function. This movement simulates real-world tasks like climbing stairs or stepping onto sidewalks, while also reawakening the hip flexors, the often ignored muscles that determine whether your feet lift high enough to avoid tripping. Japanese therapists emphasize the slow, deliberate drive of the knee because it reintroduces agility into everyday movement. The more you practice this, the more your walking pattern changes. Steps become more confident, smoother, and quicker. Many older adults first notice the difference while climbing stairs. The body simply feels stronger and more capable. And then comes the final movement, the farmer's walk with pauses, which ties all the benefits together. This simple yet profound movement strengthens your legs, your grip, your core, and your posture all at once. But it also does something even more important. It stimulates neural pathways that support mental sharpness. Japanese neurologists call this the walking memory effect. When you walk while holding weight and pause under tension, your brain must quickly adjust and stabilize your body with each stop. These adjustments activate regions of the brain responsible for coordination, balance, and even memory formation. This is why studies consistently show improved cognitive scores in older adults who perform this exercise consistently. When performed 3 times a week, these 5 movements form a circulating pattern of strength, stability, and neural training. Japanese longevity experts often design programs where older adults practice these movements in 20-minute sessions, spaced throughout the week. The order remains consistent. Calf activation first, hip activation second, spinal stability third, functional stepping fourth, and integrated walking last. This precise flow follows the natural development of movement seen in children, but applied in reverse to rebuild patterns that have been lost. What surprises many people is how quickly the body responds. Within the first 2 weeks, the most common change is a noticeable improvement in walking efficiency. Older adults report feeling more upright, stepping with more control, and catching themselves sooner during moments of instability. By the 4th week, climbing stairs often becomes easier, and long-standing stiffness in the hips and lower back begins to loosen. The 8th week is where the bigger transformation usually appears. Studies from Kyoto University show that this 8-week window is when the nervous system achieves enough repetition to fully reestablish dormant pathways, leading to greater balance, quicker reactions, and stronger muscle activation. Behind these visible changes, deeper biological shifts are happening. Japanese researchers studying cellular aging found that slow, eccentric movements and sustained holds increase the activation of satellite cells, muscle-specific stem cells, whose job is to repair and rebuild tissue. These cells, once thought to be nearly inactive after 60, become surprisingly responsive with the right type of stimulation. Over weeks of consistent training, these cells strengthen damaged muscle fibers and thicken weakened tendons. The result is increased muscle density, stronger connective tissue, and improved regenerative capacity. In Okinawa, many older adults incorporate versions of these movements into their morning rituals. Instead of long gym workouts, they spend a few minutes doing slow heel raises at their kitchen counter, gentle glute bridges on the floor, or mindful walking with homemade sandbags. Japanese culture places value on small, consistent actions over ambitious intensity, and the science strongly supports this philosophy. It's consistency that builds longevity, not force. One of the most overlooked benefits of these movements is their impact on posture. As your glutes strengthen, your pelvis returns to a more neutral position. As your core stabilizes, your spine straightens. As your calves and hips strengthen, your gait becomes more aligned and less painful. Good posture does more than improve appearance. It improves breathing, blood flow, and even digestion. The body functions as a unified system, and when one part improves, everything improves. Another powerful element is confidence. In Japan, therapists often measure something called Movement confidence, a psychological factor that predicts whether an older adult is likely to experience a fall. When people feel unsure about their balance, they unconsciously take smaller steps, stiffen their posture, and move cautiously. Ironically, this guarded style of movement increases fall risk. But as these 5 movements reawaken strength and coordination, movement confidence naturally returns. Seniors begin walking more smoothly, turning more comfortably, and navigating daily life with renewed energy. This is why Japanese longevity researchers believe movement routines must target both the body and the brain. Strength alone isn't enough. Flexibility alone isn't enough. Balance training alone isn't enough. But when the movements stimulate muscle, tendon, nerve, and brain at the same time, aging slows and in some cases, reverses. The study showing 73-year-olds regaining biological markers of people 15 years younger reflects this exact multi-system improvement. When you practice these movements, you're not just doing exercises. You're reactivating lifelong patterns of youthfulness, stability in the spine, mobility in the hips, power in the legs, and sharpness in the brain. You're teaching your body to function like it once did, confidently, fluidly, and with purpose. And every week you repeat the sequence, the changes accumulate. As you begin this journey, pay attention to small milestones. The day you rise from a chair more easily, the moment you catch yourself without panic when you misstep, the feeling of more confidence walking outdoors. These moments are proof that your body is responding exactly as Japanese researchers predicted. Your muscles are remembering, your nerves are reconnecting, your balance is returning, and your biological age is shifting. Your body wants to move, it wants to regenerate, it wants to stay strong. These 5 Japanese-inspired movements simply give it the pathway to do so. And over the next weeks, you may find that your strength, your posture, your energy, and even your confidence begin to feel more like they did years, sometimes decades ago.